Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar session. Todd Wellard is my name from the NHVR, and I'll be facilitating today's session, which will focus on the portal forms application, which we're going to be demonstrating shortly. So this webinar goes for an hour, and we're running this from the NHVR office in Brisbane. Just jump to the next slide. So very quickly, you should see on your screen the agenda for today. So I'm just going to go over quickly some introductions and housekeeping for this webinar, followed by a bit of background and scene setting from David Carlisle. We'll then get a demonstration of the portal forms application by John Barry, which will be the main part of today's session. We're then going to have a brief session where we talk about readiness for going live with the application and the things that you as a road manager will need to do, followed by questions and answers, which hopefully you'll be submitting throughout this webinar, and I'll quickly touch on how we go about doing that, and then we'll close the webinar out. So very quickly, the panel members, myself, Todd Wellard, I look after the change, engagement and communications for the program. We've got David Carlisle, who's the program director, and we've also got John Barry, who's our technical development lead on the program. So the format for today's webinar, you should see on your screen the PowerPoint slides that we're going through. So that'll be the main point that we run this webinar from, but we will cross over to the live portal to demonstrate in a few minutes' time. Now, you'll be able to ask questions as we go through this by actually typing them. So you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, there'll be a panel there where you can actually type in the question and hit submit. But can I just ask that when you do that, that you include your name and the organisation that you're from, just so we have a record of where the questions are coming from. What we'll do then is we'll gather up those questions, and at the end we've allocated a bit of time to start to go through those. Depending on how many we get, we may not get through them, in which case we'll be posting them on our engagement site after this session. So you'll be able to see all the questions and answers there. The only limitation with the Q&A, if you're viewing this on a tablet or a mobile device, you won't be able to ask questions through that particular device, but that's okay. You can still send your questions through to the email address there, the accessconnect@nhvr.gov.au email address. And the video of this webinar and all the questions will be uploaded to the www.yoursaynhvr.com.au site. So very quickly, the purpose of this session is about giving you as road managers an opportunity to raise your awareness and to have a first-hand look at the NHVR portal for access consent requests. I guess what we want to do is raise that awareness but give you an opportunity to see the portal for the first time. So it's just a brief introduction. We will be doing more of these sessions in the future, so it won't be your only opportunity to see the system prior to it being rolled out. So essentially that's what the session is about today. We'll now move into the background and the scene setting for this particular rollout, and I'll hand over to David Carlisle.
Thanks, Todd, and welcome everyone. I'd like to pass on Sal Petrosito's welcome as well to this session. I guess from our perspective as a program, we're very, very excited to get to this stage of development. We've obviously had our customer module of the NHVR portal out for the last 12 months, and this is coming towards the sort of end of the program, developing the core elements of the system, particularly for the road managers and our staff as well at the NHVR. So we're very excited to have got to this milestone. It is a major release for us, and I guess from previous implementations and anybody that knows IT systems, it's really important to take your time to get the solution right and to roll it out the best way possible. I'm hoping that a lot of people that are listening in today have been involved in the various conversations we've had around the country. There's a number that have attended awareness sessions, and hopefully from today and the subsequent webinars we do, that you'll start to get an understanding of the products and how they're going to affect what you do from a day-to-day operations. I don't need to go through in too much detail about what the problem was. I think most people understand that the current consent-based process, which is driven mostly by emails and you responding to those, it has time delays. It has obviously some issues in terms of how you then record that in your own systems. And so from the NHER's perspective, we felt it was really important to develop a product that enabled you to do your job more effectively, but to also eliminate a number of the manual steps that we're all having to do in this process. I guess from our program's perspective, we had a number of main objectives about getting consistency for the process, for our staff and for customers, to make sure that they got consistent decision making, that those decisions were also transparent, and I guess the most efficient process possible was able to be achieved. And throughout that, I guess we've been listening. I'm hoping that one of the things from our program's story is that our ability to understand what the requirements were from you and put that into a product is something that you'll see come as the solution gets switched on. But we're very excited. For those that don't know too much, there's a number of people on this web presence who haven't necessarily been at these awareness sessions. The NHVR portal, I guess, is a platform. It's replacing what we call a complex paper-based process, but typically email exchanges, and providing you with one place to go to do that particular function. There's the capability to be notified that there's something waiting for you to deal with, but you'll come onto the same platform as the customer's using and as our NHVR staff are using. So we're eliminating the need for you to have to go into a different system and for that to then be moved around and for us to never get visibility, for you not to be able to communicate with the customer effectively. And hopefully through our common platform, it gives us that ability to provide an integrated solution for all of the people involved in the process. As I said, the three components, we've already had the customer module out for the last 12 months. It has been quite successful. I think from industry's perspective, they have felt it adds a lot of value to the process. They're able to reuse applications and resubmit applications, draft those ones up and keep them in pending state before submitting. But also from a road manager's perspective, what we're trying to do is get as much of that detail right from the customer before it's sent through to you, eliminating the need to go back to the customer for more information, trying to reduce the time that sort of process happens today. I guess from our perspective, we've seen 22,000 applications lodged through the customer module of the NHVR portal, and I guess that represents right now about 98 to 99% of all the applications we get. So we're very excited by the uptake, the support we get from industry, and we're hoping there's a very similar view from road managers after we release this product, that will see the same sort of support for the product and how it goes forward. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, our staff are also going to be using it for the first time, which I guess for an end-to-end product is such an essential part in that process, is to make sure everyone's seeing the same data and able to use the tools in a common way to get the outcome for our customers, but also from your perspective to get visibility of what's happening on your network. So hopefully from your next couple of webinars that you get to see, the product is going to tick those boxes for you in terms of fixing up some of the issues that you're currently experiencing, but it's also a base platform for us to all improve it over time. And I guess that's been our approach, is to slowly build up capability and then look at where we can enhance it. So most people would be wanting to know a little bit more about our implementation approach. So from our perspective, we've been obviously focused on the development activities, bringing people up to speed with what's going to be delivered. It's through a range of awareness and support activities we've been doing. And from, I guess, the voices of most road managers, they want to make sure that we get this right. So we're looking to do an independence assurance piece where we get an independent group in to validate that we've done all the things we need to do before we've gone live. We're just at the final stages of our business process testing, which is very critical in terms of identifying, does the product fit the current process or the future process that we've all defined and agreed. That allows us to get, I guess, an understanding of what still needs to be addressed in the system, if anything. And from there we can do the final development and move into user acceptance testing prior to release. So those implementation dates are getting finalised. I guess it's something that we will commit to over the next couple of weeks, providing you with that information. But we're just finalising the testing that will put us in a better position to be able to confirm those dates. We are looking at a system where our staff at the NHVR will be using the full NHVR portal components, but to enable us to manage out the staging of the implementation, which again is a very critical part of our implementation approach. We need to make sure that we're not having everybody come into the same system at the same time, day one, which would certainly impact our ability to support you in that process, but also to be able to provide enough support for our staff during that transition. So one of the things we've done technically to solve the problem was develop what we're calling portal forms. And portal forms, I guess, is similar to the portal. It actually is the same look and feel as the portal, but it's, I guess, a simpler, lighter version that allows you to eliminate the need for responding via email and utilising the portal interface to provide responses during this transitional period prior to everyone going live with the full portal. State agencies and one or two councils in each jurisdiction will go live with the full portal, but the remainder of councils in particular will be using portal forms, which is why today we're spending time showing you what portal forms is all about, and hopefully if you've got questions, please ask them. But it's certainly our technical approach to solving what is a complex business challenge when you're transitioning from one system, one IT system, to another. This is our staging approach, and I'm very excited by what testing's identified and what we've been able to technically solve. And today John's going to be able to take us through in more detail about how portal forms works. And please keep your questions coming through, and we'll answer those at the end. But I'm going to pass over right now to John to launch across. There's a high-level picture here that talks about where we're up to. We're at probably number 2, moving towards number 3, where we're trying to get ready for implementation. Each road manager will be given, I guess, a checklist and a bit of a guide as to what are the requirements before going live. We've started to have those conversations again with state agencies and a number of councils, but that'll be broadcast to all councils shortly in terms of what do you need to do to get ready prior to implementation. But I think that might be my slide pack. Oh no, we've got one more. You know, the joys of slides. So right down today, this is probably what happens. You get an email from us and you manage it however you do at your end. When we go live, we're going to introduce portal forms, which essentially is that same interface that all portal users will be using. It's just simplified. And it will replace the email activity with the ability to respond essentially inside a web interface. And in addition to that, we're obviously launching the full portal, which will go to state jurisdictions and a number of councils initially, and shortly after that, we'll transition everybody else over to the full road manager portal. But I think that's it now, because I keep trying to tag out. I'm going to pass to John to do a demo, which is the most important part of today. So hopefully you get some information. Please keep your questions coming through, and we'll answer those at the end.
Thanks, Ray. So I'm going to take us back to right at the start, the email that you currently receive now from our CRM system. It's we've tried to design a process in portal forms that minimises the change impact as much as possible, but starts to bring in everyone into a common platform without some of the overheads of having to manage accounts, manage users, manage the configuration that goes behind setting up the account. So the first thing I'll do is I'll give you a view of what the email will look like from the portal forms. I'll get into my email server. So the first thing you'll see here, this is the email that you'll receive when you get sent a consent from the portal forms solution or the NHVR portal. The key here is that the email from address is currently different to what you see here, and we've done that purposefully so that once we cut over to portal forms, you'll know that you're receiving a new form of email, and you'll be able to use your email inbox to filter by the from address. So nhvr_portal@nhvr.gov.au is the new from address for sending out any correspondence really from the NHVR portal, but that will include the portal forms. The subject line we've also had feedback on. So at this stage, you'll see there's a a to address there. Don't worry too much about that. That's just for the purposes of these demos, so that you can see that it is possible for us to send out emails that do go to multiple parties at once. At this stage, we've got an account set up with an LGAQ representative, Robert Chow. There can be up to 3 email addresses that we send out consents to, including portal forms. So as part of the initial setup, we'll be taking your current contact details from the solution that we have and loading those up. But we do have the capability of expanding that out to another couple more email addresses if you wish. The other key thing to note in this email is that when you receive it, you'll get some very basic information about the consents. So the key is that the header of the consent will give you our new consent number. This is probably one of the most important changes across the entire solution as part of Portal Forms and Road Manager Portal, is that we're moving to one number that's common across all of the stakeholders. So when a customer submits an application, they'll receive this number, say 90322. That number sticks with that application throughout the entire life of the case. When we generate consents out of our new portal solution, all of the road managers will receive the same number. So that means that you'll all be able to communicate using the same reference ID, which unfortunately at the moment is not the case, but hopefully with the new solution that will resolve many of the communication issues we're having with having to share different numbers around. I'll talk about the R1V1 schema later. As part of the body of the email, you'll have some basic information there to categorise the consent. So we have the application type, agricultural, OSM, prime mover, truck and dog, whatever the basic configuration type is. It may be a scheme as well. You have the consent number in there as well. And then you'll have a link, and so this is the link that will take you into our Portal Forms solution. You'll notice there that it's quite a long string of characters. That's a secure token that's unique to the consent that we send to you. That particular link, once you click on it, will validate the token that's in the link and then open up a form with the consent ready for you to enter the details about, or review the details, and then start to engage with this through the portal, which is what I'll show you now. So depending on the way you receive emails, some email servers do strip out the links for security purposes. So it is possible simply to copy this link into your browser if your email services do that. A lot of the newer ones won't, as long as the email isn't trying to hide anything in the link. We've gone through some processes to try and make sure that these emails meet requirements of most email servers, so that it doesn't end up in junk mail and that the links do stay clickable. If they're not, then you can simply copy, as I suggested. I'm going to click on this link now and show you what Portal Forms looks like. So for those of you that have been used to or been on the journey a bit in terms of the way that the NHVR portal has come together, this should be fairly familiar, but it's very much a cut-down version of what the full portal provides. Later on in the presentation, I will be going into the full portal to show you how the customers and regulated users interact, so you'll get a bit of a view of it then. But your first view when you jump into a Portal Forms link is this. Very, very basic header. You'll know that it's Portal Forms by the logo on the top there. There is a link to help content on the side. So clicking on that, you'll be able to search our Help Centre for any of the knowledge base articles that we've been capturing throughout the design and development and implementation. And through FAQs that we receive through webinars like this, all of that information will start to get captured into that Help Centre, so you'll be able to search for it there. You can jump off to our standalone Help Centre, which will give you a lot more information, a bit more of a categorised and organised sites so that you can sort of delve into other aspects. There is a browser check feature which allows you to check that even the portal forms is compatible with the browsers that you may have. We have various requirements for browser support. So if I do show you that quickly now, Google Chrome is our preferred, but we also have Internet Explorer, Firefox and Safari, and you'll see the version numbers there, and they're available from our sites and the FAQs that you'll receive. So I'll jump back to the portal forms. Click on my link again. So importantly, when you click on that link, this email could go out to a number of people in your organisation. We've removed a number of the limitations on how many people can access this link at once. As a maximum, we're looking at around 50. So you can have 50 simultaneous users using this same link and viewing the same information. So we think that should be sufficient for most areas. Every link, every consent will have a different link to it, so the secure token will be unique to each consent. So every different consent you receive will be able to have up to 50 users viewing that one consent. More than enough, hopefully, for all of the local governments out there, as well as state agencies. Okay, so the first screen that you get from a case that's received, a consent that's received, is the header, which gives you the consent number. You have a very consolidated view of the status of the case and the actors in the case on the header as well. So the customer, this road manager, which is slightly fictitious, the assignee. So when you receive a portal forms consent, the consent is always issued out to the primary contact for the account, for the local government account or the state account. So whoever you provide us as that primary contact, or whoever we currently have on the system, will be the name that assignee appears as. And all of the interactions on the system in portal forms will be under that primary contact's user profile. Which means that if you have 10 users using the portal forms link at one time, all of their actions are logged under that particular primary contact. That resolves the need for user and account management in portal forms, but we do need to have a contact that it's recorded in the system, and that's the one that's used. So when you see some of the notes and some of the conversations that we'll be having in the system, you'll see that it's always assigned to the primary contact. We're able to change that contact for you any time throughout the lifetime portal forms. Once you move on to the full Road Manager portal, you'll be able to manage that yourself, and you'll be able to assign your own assignees with an unlimited number of users that you can put onto your account. You'll always receive a new consent with the status of new. The due date is automatically set to the legislative timeframes, usually 28 days. The design of the first tab is to provide you all of the information about the application to inform your consent. So we went through a number of design workshops to work out the best way of displaying this information. The vehicle load was the primary, so that's what you see immediately. You'll see for this particular application we've got a prime mover, an oversize and over mass. You can see we've got the unladen widths, lengths, heights and tear mass, a description of what's going out. So this is a house move. You've got the maximum mass of the load. You then have the width, length and heights, total masses. And then you get down into the actual specifications of the componentry of the vehicle itself. So you see here we have a prime mover long bonnet 1-2 axle. All of the details are about the axle configuration. as well as for the low loader. So all of the OSM applications that are oversized over mass will provide all this information, whether it's an ag move or it's a prime mover low loader like this. Other types of applications will have different type of information depending on the application type. So for a Class 2 move, B-double, you may not receive actual specifications because it's not required for the consent. But for moves like this, they absolutely are. For OSM oversize and overmass, vehicle list is also required, so you'll receive the registration numbers here and the VIN numbers. You'll notice there that these sections in the summary form are collapsible and toggleable. So again, based on design feedback, we've by default switched some sections on and collapsed some others. But it's very simple to either click on the arrow at the side or to just simply click on the header, anywhere on the header, to open it up or collapse it. So this is a new application, and you'll see here that the number that's being assigned is the same as the consent number, it's the same as the application number. So should this permit be issued, the number will be the same. So again, that theme of keeping a common number all the way through from application being submitted through potentially permit and then renewals after that, we'll have this one number to talk about, and all of the road managers, the customer, our case officers here at the NHVR will all have that one number, which we think is a great win. The permit period, so obviously what the applicant's looking for. And then you have the route area details. So this is an area application. You can see here that there's a number of discontinuous sections within Townsville here that the applicants asked for. I will get into some of the route management aspects in a sec. But what you're seeing here is some of the improvements that we've made to the solution over time. Those of you that have had a look at the customer portal will know that in previous iterations it was simply just a map, and we didn't even have the ability to have different discontinuous routes on a single application. We've made some great improvements over just the last 6 months to get to a stage where we can now capture applications in a digital format like this. A prerequisite really for us to be able to take the next step into portal forms and road manager portal. You will always receive now an application for routes that are geospatially encoded for single route to areas. We also have network type applications which are for say permit schemes or radial areas. For those type of applications, we've rather than getting applicants to map out every road, we're simply allowing either drawings to be made on a map, or because it's fairly obvious to us if it's for all roads for a particular permit scheme, we're just allowing the road to be added, the local government or states to be added as the consent authorities, and those applications will come to you in a bit more of a simpler format. For anything where there are specific roads being asked for, you will receive a map like this, and you'll see that it's colour-coded. So this, I can see immediately from this application that there's 2 road managers involved. The colours I'll get to in a sec when we move into the route management, but we are looking to land those colours that will become sort of familiar to state agencies, local governments and the customers, to really help distinguish who's owning what part of the road, and it'll quickly give you an idea of what sections of a particular application I should be interested in. The road lists are also generated by the system now based on the route. So you can see here that for T-City Council we've got a number of roads. You can see that some seem to be duplicated here. When I get to the map, I'll show you that that's fairly important. It's not really duplication, but more of capturing different sections on a particular road, and that gives you the power to be able to change or put notes on particular segments of road rather than the entire section of what could be a fairly long stretch of road. So we have tried to get it to a level where we can start to give a lot of control down to how we can manage the route and potentially alternatives that you can suggest. The decisions are all available to you, so when you receive a consent, you'll be able to see the decisions that have gone out to other road managers and where they're at in terms of their status, including whether they've been approved their conditions, or refused. Conditions you'll also be able to see should they be applied. The conditions I will add later on and show you how that looks. The regulator can add conditions from a vehicle, from a safety perspective, but you'll also be able to see the conditions from other road managers as they get approved. Notes, attachments, so we'll get into a bit of that in a sec, and additional information if there was any, plus just some of the sign-offs that the customer gave as part of submitting the application. So that's the summary. That's basically the entire application that the customer submitted. On the side panel, you get a sort of quick view of the case, the key actors, the key contacts. So you'll see who the regulator case officer is. You'll get their phone number and their email address. You'll see some of the key information about submission. We do have some legacy references. So as we will be transitioning from a current active system into the portal forms, where you have been referring to a case under or consent under one of our old consent numbers, that number will still be there, and that will allow you to be able to cross-reference that so that the new numbers are not too much of a jarring experience as we move into them. And you also get the applicant details, so you'll get the contact phone number, the email address of the applicant. The RCN is the regulatory customer number, and that's the unique number for the customer account. And you also get their registered address as well. The summary information about the progress of the case and the duration bar here. When a consent's first issued, your status will appear on the header. The progress and duration over here represents the progress and duration of the overall case, not only the consent. So what this gives you a view of is how the overall case is progressing. So at this stage, it's out with road managers. And the regulator, I had it for about 5 minutes and sent it out. So that duration bars will begin to collapse as time progresses, and we've used a colour coding system to try and distinguish the different stakeholders involved. So the blue there represents time with the regulator. If it's in an orange colour, that represents time with road managers, and the green we're using to represent time with customers. So we're hoping that colour scheme should, once you get familiar with it, make it quite easy to understand when you look at those duration bars, when you look at some of the statuses that you'll see on the top, who the case is with or who the time was with from a regulator or customer or road manager point of view. Okay, so I'm going to go into the case management tab now. This is where most of the interaction with the consent happens. The first step is to start assessment. So this action is basically telling the system, telling the regulator, telling the customer that you have started assessment on this particular consent. For portal forms, you may, depending on how you'd like to implement your business process, get the receipting officer to put in their name. So for me, I'll just put in a note here, and and save this to click to get it started. So once the consent has been started in that fashion, you'll see the status has changed to assessment. Now that status is then visible to the customer. It's also visible, obviously, to the regulator user. Once that has occurred, you'll see that a few options have opened up. So you have here the ability to request an extension of time, to submit an information request either to the regulator or to the customer directly, and then to submit a decision. So I'm going to get to that in a sec. The first thing I wanted to show you is the route management section, and just get into a bit more detail about how this particularly works. So this is an area application, and the way it works is that each of the single routes are described in terms of waypoint sets. So I can select different waypoint sets and make adjustments to them and save these as alternate routes, which is what I'll do just to show you. So for the case of this demo, I'll say that this particular request here I'm not very happy with. I'd like to change it and say that they can have it up to this particular point here. So all I need to do there is just simply drag and drop the waypoint. You'll see there that the aqua blue line is showing me what the original route was, or the submitted route was, and what's currently highlighted is my alternate. So I can make adjustments like that. Once I'm happy with that, I can save that as an alternate. What that will do is it will create an alternate version that's tagged with my account's road manager code. The road manager codes I wouldn't worry too much about, but they're really about the codes that are assigned to geospatial information that we receive from the Public Sector Mapping Agency, which is a federal agency that manages a lot of the mapping data for consolidating state maps. And they basically assign a code to every local government or road owner. So that's what that is. Once you've saved an alternate, and you can save as many alternates as you want, you can then go and request that that alternate is used as the base route for the applicant. So as part of showing you the information request, I'll show you how to request that alternate is accepted by the customer. So I've gone into my case management tab. If I click on the information request button, you'll see I have a number of templates. One of those templates is alternate route proposal. By selecting that, you're able to select the alternate that you've created. There may be alternates created by the regulator, even by other road managers, and any of those can be selected, and you can recommend that to the regulator or to the customer for approval. In this case, we'll select the one that we just created there. I'm happy with the comment, so I'll submit that directly. Upon submitting that, that request now has come straight through to the case officer in the NHVR. I'm going to switch over to that view now just to progress this particular request. And you'll also notice that as soon as that request has been sent off, the status has changed to request received under review. That means that the time effectively has stopped. So that duration I was showing you previously, by sending that request back to the regulator, the time now is with the regulator. I'll swap over to the regulator view now to show you what happens when I progress that as a regulator. So I'll just log in. So this is the full portal, and you'll see there's a bit more to it. I won't go into too much explanation about all of that. I will simply get into the relevant consent. Online. That's the one. Okay, so so this is what it looks like. You can see it's fairly similar. There's just a few more options, obviously, in the full version. So as a regulator, as the case officer, I've received your request. I will accept it and sending it on to customer. So now that I've progressed that as a case of that request within the portal has now gone to the customer and they've received the notification. And so I'm going to enact what the customer would do, very similar to what I've just done there. The customer is going to go into the customer portal, which is the same platform. They're going to go in and they'll see this request that has been originated from you as a portal forms user. In this case, I'm going to say, yep, happy with that, and submit that response. So now that's come back to the case officer in the NHVR, and that's important just to make sure that the request is or the response is valid. In this case it is. So upon approving that, I've now accepted that request, and you'll see that if you were looking, that the consent request was actually with the customer. It was in green. It's now moved back. It went back to blue with the regulator, and now it's moved back to consent requested. So there's a few things that happened there, but at every step in the journey, the time was being allocated depending on who it sat with. Now it's back with you as a road manager. So I'm going to jump back and have a look at this request. And I'll see that customers issued a response. It's in bold because it's a new unread response. As soon as I open it up, you'll see a read receipt is sent, and you'll see the full conversation that occurred from your original request through to sending to the customer and receiving that response back. I'm going to quickly go through requests for an extension of time and then show you the decision-making feature. So the request for extension of time is very similar to raising an information request. It's just obviously what is the extension due date you're looking for. In this case, I'll ask for a couple of months there, and I'll push that through to the regulator. So again, status has changed. I'm now asking for an extension of time. I've got a full history here of my requests of other completed requests as well. I'll jump back to the regulator view to complete that. In this case, I'll reject it, just to give you an idea of how that rejection works. So in this case, because it was consultation required under law with another entity, it's not valid for local government, only for a state authority. So I'll reject that request there. So upon rejecting the request, that's rejected. When I jump back to my forms, as these things are occurring, you're getting emails to your inbox with the responses with the same link taking you back in, so you don't have to be... so you will get those notifications through the email, but it'll always take you back into portal forms with the up-to-date view of what's happening on the particular consent. So I'll complete the decision now. So we've got a very basic decision-making request here. Approval with no conditions is the most basic. Approval with conditions, we will be providing a bit of a template for you. In this case, I'll request conditions as per attachment. So you'll be able to attach files here as part of this particular request. And you can do that as part of any request, whether that's an EOT or an information request to the customer. I'll just attach a little PDF document and then submit that request. So that takes the decision to the regulator. The regulator user then will review that, and they will create a decision in the system, which is something I won't show you now. It's something that's part of the full Road Manager portal, where conditions are added from a library perspective. To manage the change impact, we've removed those features from the portal forms interface and given it a much more simpler interface to start with. But the regulator, the case officer, will manage that process throughout, and that decision will then be made, and you'll see the updated status here saying approval with conditions, or if it's a rejection with reasons, or even approval with no conditions. At every point you'll get those emails telling you what notifications are going on. And you'll always be able to come back into this particular consent using that link at any point in time, even after the consent's closed, to view the notes or the requests that have been made. Okay, I think.
Yeah, look, John, thank you so much for that walkthrough. And I guess for people, this is the first time looking at the portal. I guess you'll get to start to see from just this interface view that this is how the full portal will start to look. But in the interim period, this portal form solution, which is really just trying to replace the email while we move people into the full solution, it starts to get you used to the way the portal will work, the functions that are in there, the ability for you to submit information requests through the product, for us to be able to respond back, and for the customer to do their tasks all on that same platform, which for us is very exciting. From the testing, it's looking really sound and quite positive. I guess it's a little bit of support and training we're going to need to provide councils through this process, so we're going to touch on that in a moment. But John, there's just a couple of quick questions that came through that I thought I'd hold off till now, just to ask. So you mentioned a reference number that was still in there, and Sanchit from Canterbury Bankstown Council asked what was that legacy reference on the front page, and I think you had mentioned it.
Yes, so at the moment we send out unique consent numbers that are different to case numbers from our CRM system. So if you receive an email from us now, that number will be in there. So that number will be the legacy reference number.
Okay. So in any future state, you might still be able to search for that number and find it.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's good. From Claude from the City of Brimbank, thank you again for sending in your questions. If you've got any now, please start to send them through. Will the portal indicate the class of vehicle on the application? I think that was something that...
Yes. Okay. So yes, it will. Yes, it will. So what we're looking to do is, this is a feedback that came through a BPT session, a testing session. We will be adding a vehicle class field, a class 1, 2 or 3, that will appear in this overview section, in the vehicle load section.
Right.
Right up next to the vehicle configuration itself.
And I guess that's an important point. Based on the current application process, the manual sort of paper-based form, you have to know what class of vehicle. We're allowing the customer to assemble their own vehicle, and for our staff and I guess the customer as well to determine which class it ends up fitting in, and passing that through I think is an important part for road managers in particular, in terms of how they assess that. So that's excellent, John. And Diane asked about if it's a council vehicle, so I'm driving my council vehicle, I need to get on the local roads, are they able to do that process separate? I think this is more of a policy question. As much as anything, but are they able to do it separate to the portal?
Separate to the portal?
Yeah, so I think this is one that I think is a little bit more about the policy setting than the technology. Mm-hmm. As you saw, John could attach documentation to the system. So if it's your local roads and you're needing to give yourself approval to get on them, having that submission as part of that, an attachment as part of an application, a broader application, would be possible. But we may take that one offline and look to answer that separate, because I think there's a little bit more of a policy question there. Just a few questions coming through right now. Look at it's streaming in. I tell you, it's crazy. David Webb has just asked right then, can the standard road and travel conditions, the NHVR document that came out in March 2016, be uploaded to the portal and be dropped on options? That's a really good question. Mm-hmm. Something that we have sort of already done, but let's talk to that.
Yes. Well, as part of the full Road Manager portal, that standard conditions library will be integrated, and as part of the decision-making process, which is very similar to what I showed you in terms of making requests, you'll be able to add standard conditions en masse. You'll be able to create your own condition sets, even add your own custom conditions into that library that we didn't really get into today because it's not part of a portal forms.
Yep.
With the portal forms, to manage the change impact, we decided to allow road managers simply to attach in a similar way that they respond to consents today. But certainly with the full version of the Road Manager portal, the sophistication around conditions management is there.
Yeah, excellent.
So initially, the majority of road managers will be using portal forms. They won't have that conditions library functionality, but as they switch over to the full portal, that'll be enabled and they'll be able to pull from that library of conditions.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Just keeping the questions going, Salmon says, for council record keeping, is there a way to export the whole process, a set of documents for each application?
Yep, so the case details section itself is printable. So when you go to print it, all of the sections expand automatically. So that includes the conditions that are added from you as well as all other road managers. You get the map, the road list, all of the notes. The attachments aren't, so that would have to be something that's downloaded in a different by clicking on the links. But in terms of all of the information relevant to the consent and the decisions made about the consent, that's all available from the summary and it's printable in one click.
Yeah. So they could PDF it and
Yes,
send it to whichever system they like. Obviously, the portal for us is a place that this activity is happening and it's where our records are retained. Your interactions are also recorded and retained. There's no expiry on those. Mm-hmm. So certainly from that perspective, there's different ways for you to be able to do that at this point in time. Mm. So. Mm. Excellent question. A couple more have popped through. So Brett's asked, is it possible to see if the customer has completed a route assessment?
So it's
triggered through the information request process. I guess they have to notify us when the route assessment is complete and provide that as an attachment. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that's right. I mean, if a route assessment's requested from the road manager, then it'll go through the NHVR case officer on the way to the customer, and then the customer's response is also assessed by the regulator before going back to the road manager. So the case officer here at the NHVR is always making sure that the responses and the requests coming out are good and valid, and that sort of gatekeeper to make sure that the process has been followed.
So at the moment that's happening via email, separate to any system. We obviously need to make sure it's facilitated through this sort of portal environment, and it absolutely is. So,
and we've encouraged. I mean, there's nothing to stop anyone, a road manager or customer, contacting directly by phone and organising things in that fashion. But we recommend that you use the system to get that transparency, to make those records accessible to everyone. Mm-hmm. Even if it is a phone call, you can add a note which records the details of that call. And at least it's captured there against the case record.
Yeah, and certainly in the full portal there is a timeline view, which is pretty cool. That gives you a quick snapshot at any point, being able to push into that. Just one or two more here. Kevin's talking about expired permits and having a link to those as the applicant able to renew. Obviously, applications that have been submitted in the portal can be automatically renewed and accessed. I guess from the question we've got is are expired permits going to be put in there at some point or potentially migrated over?
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't get to today was just to show you what happens once the permit is issued. Once the permit's issued, you get, even in portal forms, you'll get an email which will say that there's a permit issued, and it'll take you back to the portal forms, but there'll be a link here to the document which you'll be able to open. If the permit is renewed, if it's suspended or it's cancelled, you'll get emails back to the same token in that same email. And we'll take you back into your consent, and you'll have the new document sitting for you here. So everything will be accessible from the portal forms interface.
Great. Probably one last one, just quickly. Marvia has asked, would it be possible for council to approve the route for a particular type of vehicle rather than each individual vehicle, i.e. pre-approving the route for all future vehicles? Is that capability built into the portal?
We're working on enhancing our current pre-approval process, and we are looking to drive that through the portal. but that would be Road Management Portal Full as opposed to the light forms version, but it is certainly something that we're considering.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a full portal version, once you're in there using that interface, it allows you to respond approving it or even ticking the box to allow you to actually move it to a pre-approval. So there's a bit of intervention we need to do, but we're looking at those enhancements right now, which is great. Look, we'll continue through, and if there's any more I find, I'll pass it on to Todd.
So, yeah, that's great. Thanks for those questions. Keep them coming through, and as I said earlier, we will respond to these questions on our website, so you'll be able to view all of our responses there. I just want to very quickly, we've got a couple of minutes left, I just want to very quickly talk about readiness. We've talked about the process that we've gotten to in terms of engaging with all the different stakeholders, including road managers, to develop the product that John just demonstrated. But what we need to make sure is that when we roll this out, that you are ready to start using the portal on that first day. So there's a range of things that we're doing internally here at the NHVR, and obviously we need to advise you around what it means in terms of technology requirements, but also making sure that we provide the support materials. There's probably some things that you need to think about as an organisation and how you're positioned to take on the portal and the timing of that. We'll just jump forward. So as we've discussed today, the focus is about really starting on portal forms for most of you, and there's not a great deal that you need to do in terms of being ready for that. It's actually a pretty simple change, and as John demonstrated, you're still going to get an email coming through to you. That email process is slightly different, so there's not a great deal that you need to do in terms of being ready. There's a couple of comments there on the slide there that what we want to do is manage the process through the implementation through our engagement site, which is the yoursay.nhvr.com.au website. And in there we will have a series of checklists that will allow you to go in and complete those to make sure that you're ready. As part of that as well, obviously everybody would like us to come around and do training in each of their offices. You know, that's very difficult given that we operate Australia-wide, but we will be making sure through webinars and a range of other tools that we're able to get to you. We have put together a Portal Forms video, so you'll be able to watch that as well as today's webinar just to go back over, because there was quite a lot to take in terms of that demonstration.
Yes, a couple of people, Todd, have mentioned that the stream for them was kicking in and out, so this video will be made available for their consumption through the Your Say NHVR website.
Absolutely. So what all you need to do is make sure that you register on the site here, and you'll be able to jump in and you'll be able to
email the link around.
Yeah, we'll send the link around so you'll be able to see all that information. So the first step, you'll be on Portal Forms. We'll work with you in terms of transitioning you over to the full portal. And, you know, as part of that process, there are a few more things that you see a couple of pages there in terms of steps that we will go through to ensure that you're ready to jump onto the full portal. Now, very quickly, I mentioned the Your Say site. Please, if you haven't already, jump on and register on this site. This will be the point that you will go to receive updates. Obviously, we're doing emails, but this is where we'll have the checklist, we'll have the videos and all the other materials there for you as we move closer to the implementation, including things like frequently asked questions, which you see on the screen there. We jump to the next slide. We've got this help centre which John demonstrated from the front screen. So we've got a dedicated site here to support road managers, and we've got in there work instructions, we've got the videos as well, we've got a range of other support materials as well as those different contact avenues if you're still struggling to find your way through the system. So that's the user support side. So very quickly, just in summary, today was really about giving you an opportunity to raise your awareness and get a first look at the Portal Forms application. So hopefully you've seen that. Keep your questions rolling in. We'll be going into that readiness checking process soon, and we'll be uploading those checklists to that Your Say site. In terms of what happens now, we'll post those videos and the Q&A on the site as we said. Jump on and register. We are going to be planning our future webinars, so look out for those, as well as loading those checklists and preparing for the rollout. We'll be coming around and doing a series of showcase sessions someplace near you. We won't get to everybody's workplace, but we'll be getting to regions, so we will be updating you about those upcoming sessions. And of course, keep your questions coming in. We just jump to the next slide. by all means, contact us at any time on the website, on the email address you see there, accessconnect@nhvr.gov.au, and we'll respond to your questions. So look, thank you very much for your attendance today.
Yeah, Todd, and just finally, we've got a number of questions that have come through we weren't able to get to, so we'll look to answer those offline, make them available through the website. We will be looking to do the portal full demonstration very, very shortly. We're locking in the date in the next couple of days, so look out for that email, please. That's probably the most critical one for those moving to the full portal solution, but also it's the final product that you'll be using very soon after portal form. So look out for that. Thanks, John, for the demonstration, and thank you all. We had over 100 councils register, and that's how many people were sort of looking at what was going on today. Excited by the attendance, and we're also keen for you to send this link out to others so that if they didn't get a chance to see this video, they can look at it another time. So thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
See you guys.